begin with Ms. Shalini Fernandes, our Head of Inclusion. We have a slide that shows the panelists. And then we have our Vice Principal, Ms. Christine Noronha. All of you are familiar with her. Ms. Christine, I really look up to her because one, she's a wonderful mom to 3 amazing kids and 3 amazing grandchildren, and brings so much of perspective from her vast experience to all of us, and she's so pragmatic. So I'm sure, why have it just for NMS and NMS staff? I want her to be as accessible to our parent community as well. And in our midst is also the Sonali Bhaumik. I've known her as parent for quite a number of years now, and I've been in awe of the way she's been raising her 2 children. Both used to study with us, and now we have Jovita, who is yet with us in grade 8. She's the head prefect of grade 8. And somebody who's from Jovita would know how multifaceted she is. And the parents are always at the helm of things, be it attending parent-teacher events or school events, and then attending events with the children and promoting it. I wonder how she gets to pack so much in a day. Sorry to embarrass you, but thank you so much. We will be hearing from Ms. Sonali herself. And then with me is Ms. Sweta Chakravarty. Ms. Sweta is Head of Wellbeing Counsellor. Most students know her very well, and she is really the face of well-being at NMS in the sense that we have this program running called the Well to Wellbeing, WOW as we call it, WOW 101. And it's no more of a 101 actually, because it's shaped up to becoming a very exquisite component at NMS, and Ms. Sweta is primarily responsible for leading from the front in that direction. So to our very exclusive panelists, I want to say welcome, and glad to be on board with you.
And allow me to welcome Ms. Martin, our principal, who has 2 wonderful children. She's done such an amazing job with them. She's been such a supportive mother and produced 2 very successful, good human beings. So you have someone who knows how to do it. And her children are proof of all that she has done as a mother.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Christine. I hope we are audible, because one of the chats popped up saying the audio is low. We have enhanced it now, and I'm going to be trying. I'm going to try and be as loud as I can. So the first slide for today that comes up on your screen is the Maslows theory, which okay, before that, yes, some housekeeping tips. We want to tell parents as we go through the session, maybe there are some reflection points, or maybe you have questions to ask around this topic. Then do feel free to put it in the chat box, and we'll try and answer that for you, along the way. So the chat box is open if you'd like to access it. And then we get on to the content now. So on your screen is the Maslows Hierarchy of Needs, and most of you parents would probably have come across this. And along this pyramid, what you will see at the bottommost rung of this pyramid is the physiological needs that every human being wants, and it includes. Sorry, so somebody says I'm unable to hear anything. Is it with me or everyone else? I think everybody else can hear. So please maybe log off and log in, because the audio is really clear. And as we go, Ms. Shalini, please answer on chat so that parents are, we keep a tab on chat. People say the voice is low. I think we are actually pretty audible. So please check mic. I think all of I even have a mic over here, so it's picking up on other range. So and we're going to be absolutely loud. Okay. So with that, let's start with the first slide, Maslow's Hierarchy of Needs. What is on the lowermost rung of that pyramid addresses the physiological needs that one needs to have. And it caters to the 5 senses, if you will see. It's food, water, warmth, rest, and the 5 senses, I'll talk to you about the senses. Above the physiological needs is the safety needs that the child needs to have. And then there is a sense of belongingness, validation. Above blue you see self-esteem, and then above that you see, actually what would be utopian in terms of self-actualization. But for a child to really reach that epitome of what would be the best in terms of feeling good about oneself, all of the other things at the bottom of that ladder needs to be, in good proportions, timely, and be doled out to the kids in a manner where they don't seem entitled to it, but at the same time that there is no deficiency of these aspects. And I'll talk to you a little more about senses and why that is so important. In the next slide, you will see that you would have heard of 5 senses. There are actually 7 senses. In the 7th sense, we'll move on to the next slide. The 7th sense. So I think the first 5 we all know, which is talking about sight, hearing, our olfactory senses, the sense of taste, and then the sense of touch, the tactile and the kinesthetic sense. But the second, the 6th one and the 7th one, which is the vestibular senses, which is got to do with movement. And maybe you will read up about this. I'll just read 5 seconds. So the vestibular senses or vestibular movement or the vestibular set of organs that is called, what it does is it manages the way a child, right from childhood days, how do they manage their movement, and if these senses, if this particular set of organs don't coordinate, that leads to giddiness or dizziness, and then later on becomes manifested into things like whether it is spondylitis or vertigo and so on. So it's important for us to, that upright position in which the children are sitting, and whether it is that posture when they are doing their homework, and all of this starts in the when children are very young. The last one, that is the proprioception, and proprioception is about it is about when you're holding a crayon, how much pressure do you apply on that crayon so that it doesn't crush? Or when you're holding something fragile, how much of pressure do you hold it with so that it doesn't crumble? Or when you're jumping, or when you're when you are say running, or when you're walking on grass, how much of pressure do you apply on the grass so that it's also, and it's not only about movement of your body weight. It's also about when you're looking at someone. You have a hard gaze and a soft gaze. Most often, we are just so caught up in the rush of things that we look at everything with the same amount of pressure in our eyes. What would be great is, you have a soft gaze when you are looking at things which are more endearing to you, and then you are able to be expressive with your eyes. So senses is a whole lot of things, and these are things that can really come into play and become a huge part of a child's personality if it is really channeled in the right way by the parents at that age. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs is so important in establishing that self-confident children, and it's not only confidence; it is a whole lot of other things that that children need when to be overall say successful. So it is the coping mechanism, the impulse that they show when things go wrong, the ability to be in a position to control themselves when things around them are going wrong, and the inner motivation that they have, so on and so forth. So we're going to discuss all of these topics, and then reflect a little more on how as parents we can really bring out the best in our children, as we just don't want them to be able to cope at the end of the day, to be able to just fit in at the end of the day. We want them to be thrivers. Remember, that's a key word for today. Ms. Christine, you had some important and interesting points as we were discussing this yesterday, right?
Yes, let me begin with differentiating between children who are surviving and children who are thriving. As Ms. Martin rightly said, if children are surviving, we are providing them with the basics, whether it's food, clothes, shelter, and if you go a little higher, good education, good health care, protection from harm, basics. But if you're talking about thriving, thriving is to flourish. It means to bloom, it means to prosper, it means to shine forth. Parents, thrivers are not born. Thrivers are raised. And in her book, Shireen, if you can just move to that next slide. In her book called Thrivers, Dr. Michelle Borba differentiates between strivers and thrivers. She says, ultimately, it doesn't boil down to your marks and your grades and your test scores. Ultimately, it is about 7 character traits that set thrivers apart. What are those 7 traits? It's self-confidence, empathy, self-control, integrity, curiosity, perseverance, optimism. Now that's a very, very tall order for parents, right? To develop so many traits in children. But what is the good news? The good news is these traits can be taught. They're teachable, and they're teachable to children at any age.
See, I think that's where this phrase comes in, where nurture is as important as nature. So and all of these things can be taught, not just taught. Some things can be taught as well and taught, and I think that's a balance that parents need to maintain and see deeper along the way.
Absolutely.
That journey.
Absolutely. And so then, if we want to nurture these traits in our children, what's the role of the parent? I like this analogy of a parent being compared to a lighthouse. A lighthouse, so parents are like beacons of light, and they are on a very stable shoreline. So they are observing, they're watching the ship, their children out at sea. They are always available to the children. They intervene when necessary, but they remain distant observers. That's so important, right? That we don't intervene and sort it all out for our children all the time. And by doing that, we think we are helping our children, but in fact, we're crippling them, because every time they face a problem, we jump in. Yeah. So lighthouse parents stand back, watch, observe, they look at the rocks, they don't let the children crash into the rocks, they empower children to ride the waves, and ultimately they negotiate the entire world. So what are some characteristics of these lighthouse parents? 1, lighthouse parents provide unconditional love. Now, that can be sometimes mixed up with unconditional approval. In schools, we face that every day, day in and day out, where parents are not able to say no to their children. They don't know where to set boundaries and how to put their foot down when it comes to unacceptable behavior. Remember, you are the adult at home. It's not your child who's going to be running the home or setting the rules. You can work it out together with your child, but you are the adult. Set boundaries at home. Another trait of lighthouse parents, they set high expectations, but expectations that are realistic and achievable. So there's a very fine balance between pushing the child and supporting the child. Yes. Another trait that we can look at, and which is very, very important, is, as I mentioned before, not to get overprotective. Let the child make mistakes. Let the child become independent gradually. Let the child realize, it's not that I can't do it. I can do it, and my parents are there. They are the lighthouse. They are watching. And if I'm ever going to crash against a rock, they're going to support me. But let them make those mistakes and work it out for themselves. It's not easy for a parent. It's not easy to know, Should I interfere? Should I intervene at this point? Or should I just hold back and see what happens?
I think the more they practice this, they would know. And they would know what are the thresholds. Okay, when do they need to step in, and how far they can let the students navigate and be the captain of their ship. But unless they try, they won't. They'll make the children so dependent on them that risk taking will just be out of question. So it has to be measured and calculated, but it has to begin.
Yes, true. And in keeping with that, develop coping skills in your child. These days children crumble. For every time they face failure, they crumble. Because apparently sometimes some parents are giving the so-called unconditional love. And unconditional love says, I'm always there. I protect you. I won't let you face any harm, danger, anything. I won't let anything go wrong. But how long? Are we preparing them for adulthood? So develop coping skills in children. And finally, connect. Connect and communicate with your children at all times. Talk to them. Spend quality time with them. I have a student who is doing extremely well. Many of my students are doing very well, but this particular boy is doing extremely well. He and his wife are, they're soaring as far as their career is concerned, and their new business is growing rapidly, and they have two young children. And very often the question that they are asked is, how do you manage home and your career, which is so demanding? And he always says, we spend quality time more than quantity. Perhaps we don't have all the time in the world to spend with the child, but sometimes even we parents who have a lot of time, is the time that we are spending quality time, or are we scrolling on our phones? Are we busy? Are we preoccupied with many other things? And yet we are physically present. So check the quality versus the quantity.
But that's easier said than done, I know, because there are often times I get caught with my daughter, where we are just having conversations this way, and she'll say, Mom, are you listening? Are you listening? And then she, just makes it very embarrassing when I have to say, okay, 100% attention. It's not easy because I know, especially after the pandemic, where so much happens on our phone, work gets done on our phone, we've become accessible to everybody 24/7, and it's just very difficult. But I think, these are, it's also about how we manage work and home. As responsible parents, if we deliver at work, and probably I don't want to be telling this because each parent has your own set of commitments and expectations at work. But as much as we can, if we can, ensure that we deliver at work and we set boundaries for work and then home, and it's not compartmentalized, but there is a work and family harmony rather than things going parallel. I think it works. So much for parents to think about, really, and to organize and reorganize our lives if you want to be successful parents.
Now, this got me as a parent, Miss Christine, to speak. Miss Christine, as a parent, it got me thinking about what you said about parenting styles. And I truly believe now, on reflection, on thinking back, as a young parent, I started off as a helicopter parent, and I slowly developed and grew into a lighthouse parent, which I'm thankful for, because it's, parenting doesn't come with a manual. So I guess I went through the same thing as many of our parents are going through. And the next author in this this webinar that I would like to reference is Margot Bisno. And she wrote a book called Raising Entrepreneurs. You can see that on your screen, Raising an Entrepreneur. And she says in that book, what she did during the authoring of that book, she interviewed a lot of people across various walks of life. And she found one commonality between what the interviewees said. The line you see there is what I quote from that book. Every successful person had a parent who supported and believed in them. And if she saw this commonality, and I'm sure all of us agree with this, because there are very few people who have reached the pinnacles of success but are self-made, but many of them have had support. Now, the first parenting success story I would like to discuss today is that of May Musk. She is mum to Elon Musk, and she is a multifaceted woman. I mean, she's done many hats, and she has really, reached success, and she has seen success in the face, I should say. Talking about her, going back to her story, she has been a single parent to 3 children. And what she did was, when the children were young, they were living in poverty, so she had to work 2 and 3 jobs, which she did, and she supported her kids. But when Elon grew up and became old enough to go to university, she knew she couldn't afford the fees or whatever, the finances. So what she did was, she took up a job at the University of Toronto as a research officer, just so that, yet another job. When I say took up a job, I would mean an additional job in addition to her 2 and 3 jobs. So you can imagine the pressure she was under. So this was only to make sure that her son got a free education. And speaking of her journey, she doesn't stop there. She has been there for her children throughout, to the extent that when they opened their first software company, they didn't have enough finances. So what she did was, she drew out all her life savings, which was to a tune of probably 10,000 USD. And that was the money she used to finance the boys' office space. So if you look at this, she has had a lot to do with her children throughout various stages in her life. Now, coming to an example which is closer to home.
So before you go to the second example, I think what it just clearly establishes is that children stand on the shoulders of giants.
Absolutely.
And the moment the parents are able to offer that support, and it need not always be financial.
Yes.
But it has to be further enveloped with, that I can go back to my parent at any time, and I know that I will have his love. I may not have his approval, like Ms. Christine said. I may not have his approval, but I will have his love. I will have his understanding, and I can always work towards.
Most of all, I won't be judged,
Yeah.
because an outsider can judge, but your people are least judgmental. I mean, what our children expect from us is less of being judgmental, less of I told you so. But as a parent, I know it's a huge challenge to hold back and say, say, okay, go ahead, make your mistakes, fall, sink, swim.
That doesn't really mean that we approve, for them to be going, in a direction that we would not want them to. I mean, they have to adhere to social norms and social expectations and cultural expectations and so on. But at the same time, if at all things don't go in their favor, they will always have that acceptance from the home front, right? Absolutely. And then your second example, I'm keen to hear about who's your second example.
My second example is R. Madhavan. He is a very famous actor, director. I mean, he's made a name for himself. I mean, he's built such a solid portfolio. He can be considered a veteran in his field at this point in his life. But he happens to have a son who's showing all the hallmarks of being a future Olympian. And the biggest decision he must have taken, and I'm sure, dear parents, at least some of you must have made this decision at some point in your life, where you step back and say, as much as I like pursuing my career, I need to take maybe 2 steps or even 10 steps back in order to be a better parent. I rather look at being a better parent than a director of a company one day. So this is what R. Madhavan seems to have done. What he did was, he relocated at this point in his life to Dubai, so his son can get those facilities which can help him become a better sports person and follow his dream. So his son Vedant hasn't really disappointed him. He has won his second medal at the Open Danish recently at Copenhagen.
He did all of us in India proud.
Absolutely, he did all of us proud. And he had one thing to say to the press when the world press was at his door interviewing him. He had one thing to say. He says, My dad has been there for me, praying for me, supporting me, motivating me. Now, for all the parents who are raising teenagers or who have raised teenagers, you will admit that when the child is little, the child is not ashamed to come and say, Mom, I love you, Dad, I love you. You mean the world to me. But as our children grow up, there's a lot of this resistance, distancing. They feel embarrassed. They may feel so, but they don't like to say so.
They don't express.
So they don't express. So see, Ms. Bhaumik is, she's nodding vigorously. So I know she feels it, and I felt it too. But if this child, okay, a teenager, 16, 17-year-old can stand up in front of the world and say, it was my dad and mom all the way. So what is happening? What I see here in both the examples is we have to invest in our children. Be it time when they are young, quality time when they're getting older. It could be finances. It could be just that social emotional support. Maybe your child doesn't know how to mingle socially. He may be at the peak of his career, or maybe in society, as a person within a group of people, he must be feeling very small about it. It may be something as trivial as that, but we have to be there for them.
So ultimately, it's about
the bottom line.
You got us all thinking.
Ultimately, it's what. Sorry. So Shalini, what I've picked up from your examples is the sacrifice that parents have to make.
Absolutely.
There's definitely an element of putting your children before yourself at any cost. Yeah?
And what I particularly liked is that you've got a balance. You've got like a mom and you've got a dad, which really, really reflects true partnership, because parenting is not just one hand. It's like, it takes two to tango.
Yes,
And I've come across so many dads who have given up their career, taken the back seat. It's not just the mums. I mean, culturally, we may say, okay, the mom is so capable, but she did this for her children, she did this and she did that. But I see there are so many dads who have taken that step down and said, okay, my wife, let her pursue her career. Let me, take a step down. So it matters a lot. Like Ms. Bhaumik says, whoever does it, it has to be done. And we don't regret it as parents at the end of the day. When we see our children, when we stand as those beacons of light on our stable shores and watch our children sail through life, that feeling is something else. I think we're almost there, some of us here. So let's hope it goes through like that.
No, I remember when Madhavan put up this achievement on his Twitter, as a Twitter feed, and there were so many people from across the globe who were congratulating him. Madhavan actually went on to reply to each comment, feeling so good about it. And I know that is a personal investment that you make in terms of effort and time. And this cannot just come on Twitter, on social media space, It is something that happens within you that manifests itself in the form of a small outcome. Yes. Effort and gratitude. Yes. Yeah. It's a combination. Yes. And in a way, we are teaching our children. Yeah. So, I completely agree with you, Ms. Shalini. According to the Vedanta, the ancient Vedanta philosophy, it is said that parents are like bows and children are arrows. The more the flexible and resilient the parents are, the children are going to cope, and they are going to go further. So in their life, you pull the bow and you stretch it. You teach them to become more flexible, adaptable, and they can reach further. Resilient. And to exceed expectations. Yes. So here I want to talk about 5 attributes which I want to share with all of us, with all of you, and among us also. This is about resilient, and this is resilient is the foundation for a happy and a successful child. It depends. It's kind of a reflection of us as parents, how we are as a resilient parent. So I'm going to talk about the 5 attributes. Those are, there's an acronym, POWER, POWER. P stands for persistence, where the child is goal directed, and he has this attitude of never give up.
And O is again optimism. Optimism, finding the silver lining for every in every situation, and solving problems and thinking those problems as dark clouds, and finding a solution as a silver lining to them. They don't dwell on the problems. They are solution seekers. Then we have W, which stands for willpower. So a happy child has a strong willpower. Um, there are two choices: to languish or to flourish. So a child with strong willpower, who is always happy and wants to be successful in life, will always flourish. E for enthusiasm. Enthusiasm in doing whatever they are doing, the whole process of doing a task. They enjoy while doing that task. They're very happy, and that's why they are successful, and they're very enthusiastic of the entire process. Next, we have P, O, W, E, and R. The last one, but not the least, is responsible. According to a research by Harvard, students, when they take ownership and responsibility of their tasks, they are mentally engineered to be successful, and they find a lot of happiness in their life. So I want to say that if we as parents, if we can inculcate all these 5 attributes, in our children, in a way, we will give them the power, POWER, to thrive.
Sweta, when you say inculcate, more than inculcate, I think my child would learn better if I were to model these attributes.
Yes,
Because
definitely.
to inculcate something, and they do what they see.
Yes, yeah, true. That is
Otherwise,
what
it could just be preaching.
Yes, that is what I said when it's come to being resilient. It's the reflection of your parents. Like if we reflect the same kind of all these attributes, they are definitely going to learn from us.
And to that point, when you talk about resilience, one of the ways that I personally demonstrate resilience is about sharing my own setbacks. And I don't feel embarrassed to share that, because I feel I'm really, really nurturing young adults. And if they can understand my setbacks and they can relate to it, they can possibly learn something out of it. They build in that resilience in themselves.
You're making yourself vulnerable in front of your children.
Yeah.
And vulnerability is a great thing. That's when children begin to understand. I remember meeting a mother who's very, very focused on her children, and she does everything, heart, soul, mind, body, time, everything into her children. And one day she encounters a huge problem where she's completely crushed. And she came to me crying, broken. I cannot face them. I cannot. I said, this is the time when your children are watching us. Yes. And all that you have taught them will amount to nothing if you don't stand up when you are at this time when you'll be completely crushed. So they need to see it in you. I so fully agree. And that we need to not just preach to them, but live it, because they learn from our lives more than anything.
The way we handle situations, the way our strategies, our coping mechanisms, to your point, I think they imbibe a lot from those real-time examples.
And Ms. Bhaumik, you said you are open with your children about your drawbacks. Here, I think most importantly, you're teaching them that it is okay not to be okay.
Absolutely.
I mean, they put you on a pedestal as a parent, but they also understand that you can face the same emotions as them. True. Or you have at some point faced the same situation.
And demonstrate that, yes, I'm aware of the flaws and I'm working towards it. So all of us have our flaws. None of us are perfect, but how we are working towards it makes us also thrive. Absolutely.
I mean, what a wonderful discussion, and so much for us to take away and think about. And while we're discussing all of this, we spoke a lot about this. Was all a lot about the psychological side of parenting. Modeling by example, walking the talk. Don't just do what I tell, but do what I do, and stuff like that. But we need some very practical examples here of what really works in terms of home routines when you are raising children who thrive. So it's very easy to say, okay, you come back from school school, now take a nap, have your food, take your nap, and then you start on your school work, and then that is done, you have 30 minutes of playtime, and that is done, and then and then put a routine to it. And these are just timetables, right? It is very devoid of emotion and all of this psychological aspects that we were talking about. So I want to ask you, Ms. Bhaumik, having raised these two wonderful children who are so multi-talented. I mean, I know they've got their hands in so many pies. And then sometimes I think, well, how are they really managing it? Because I would see them, acing it in academics. And that's not easy, right? Because acing it in academics means that they put in so much effort into understanding all of those concepts really well and attempting all of the critical thinking and problem-solving questions that come in the assessment sheets. And then after that, they are in sports, they're into basketball, your daughter is singing, she's great on stage. So which means again there is practice involved. I mean, I don't think Jovita just gets up on stage and starts singing. She puts in hours before she actually gets on stage. So what kind of home routines do you set for your children to be able to juggle all of these things?
Sure. So I often am being asked this, and I'm very, very happy to share it with all of you. I wouldn't give you the usual ones that plan well and calendarize and multitask and juggle, because those are words. You talked about real example, practical ways of how to make it work, and that's exactly what I'm going to share today. So it's pretty simple. Of course, we will begin our year on an annual goal note, which you possibly are doing when you're managing your own teams. That's pretty much important for me as a person, for my children as individuals, and even my husband does it. So we all have our annual goal sheet. And it could be a mix of personal stuff, professional stuff, something for the family that we all will do together. So once we have that annual agenda set, we will possibly look at, breaking it down into monthly calendars and then weekly and then daily. But all of that still remains as planned. It's still on a calendar. How do you really make it work? And that's exactly what I strive for. It's pretty simple. There are two ways of going about it, which I personally find it very, very impactful. One is all about really chalking it out. When I say chalking it out, it's all about making it happen. So you look at something like Fafa, okay, and that's something that I have coined together with my children. So when I say Fafa, it's actually a balanced approach, like you said. You have hours of practice, you have inclination towards academics, so you have 6 to 8 subjects and maybe some self-study subjects that you want to do. Plus, you also are conscious about your own health. At the end of the day, it's all about well-being, which is holistic. So when we coined Fafa, we looked at 4 elements, and that's a quadrant. So F is for fun, A is for aspiration, F again, which is for fitness, and the other A is for academics. Wow. And it's something that was really fun for us to coin it together, and we did it like, me and the children together, and we made a quadrant, and we said, okay, how do we go about balancing it all out? Because it's not just about getting that, topper award, and just sort of shining in one area, like we just discussed. It's all about scores. So when we say Fafa, it's talking about all the 4 quadrants. You've got fun there, you've got fitness there, you've got aspirations, you've got academics, all 4 of it. So while you have all of that, you've sort of identified the elements that will really make you happy. So under fun, what is it that will make me happy? So that's not something as a parent I can do it. It has to come from the child. When it comes to academics, of course, I direct a little, to be very, very honest. You would have subjects, you would have aspirations in terms of what you really want to achieve on those subjects, if there is a goal post around it. And then aspirations, what aspiration, it's all about their initiatives, their projects, right? What is it that they really want to achieve in that year? And then there is fitness. So while I have that, Fafa, that's my key when it comes to home routine. The second bit that I felt, which again was an afterthought when I was trying to implement Fafa, sometimes it doesn't work. You have it on the paper, they know that they have to bring in that element of academics, but sometimes aspirations take over and the academic will sort of, be left behind. And that's when I devised this whole bit of the time blocking. and that's a strategy or technique that we all have read about, I'm sure. Time blocking really helps. So if I have my Fafa elements and then I have my week plan and I block time, so like you said, 4 to 5 is practice hour, be it music, be it sports, whatever you want to practice, 4 to 5 is that hour. 5 to 6 is all about fitness. Go get some fresh air, balance it, socialize a little. 6 to 7, again, academics. 7 to 8 is family time. You could have some bit of fun. So when you time block it like that, it becomes easy. It becomes doable. Because if you look at it 24 hours a day, 8 hours is what you typically will spend, right? Sleeping 8 hours, say another 10 hours, traveling, school, etc. You're still left with 6 to 8 hours a day. And if you really apply Fafa with a time block mechanism, I think we can manage it.
What I like about this is there's so much collaboration with your children. You know, it's not something that you've drawn out or your husband has drawn out for them. It's in collaboration with them, so they take ownership for that, and they are therefore committed to it. I think that's absolutely amazing.
It's doable. That's what I'm looking at. And what I like the best about the Fafa is the aspirations, because the children know where their goal is. They know what they're working towards.
You know, interestingly, the other day we were having a session with our grade 10 parents. It was called Reachful Stars. And, this was my suggestion to the grade 10 parents. Do you have a 10-year plan? So do you have a 25-year plan? And why not? You know, as a family, if you're not going to have your family plan for the next 10 years, for the next 25 years, where do you see yourself as a parent? Where do you see your children? Where do children see themselves? And what are the goals that we have in the next 25 years? Maybe it is places you want to visit. Maybe it is things, skills that you want to learn, or maybe it is a music video that you want to do. Why not? And I love the whole acronym approach. So I want to ask you, families, do you have an acronym for your families? Fafa is great. Actually, in my household, we have one which is called IFA. It is just the first letter of each of our names. So it is all over, it is not, there's no more greater philosophy to it, but we identify ourselves as IFA, just words. But Fafa is great. It is purposeful. It is purpose-driven, purpose-bound, and I love the fun element in it. I think Ms. Sri, you should just put this up on chat. What is Fafa? And I want to ask parents, do you have an acronym for your family? Then let us know on the chat box so we can share. What is your family acronym? And what does it stand for? So my next question to Ms. Sonali, you already have parents who sent on chat that they like the Fafa approach and they're going to start integrating that. There's a question, at what stage do we start integrating that in terms of discussion with children? Would you like to answer that?
Sure, I think any stage is a good stage, to be very honest. Of course, when it comes to aspirations, you wouldn't want to start like really early to a kindergarten, but in the back of your own head as a parent, you would have that aspect of aspiration. So I think it's holistic. And to answer your question in a very brief manner, any stage is a good stage. Depending on what stage your child is, you might want to tone it down or amplify a certain element of it.
Yeah. So my next question to you, Ms. Sonali, is, see, in raising, I know your children are, they're happy kids and touch wood. But what I want to ask is, it takes a lot for them to have that high state of, emotional quotient. Because, they could have had a bad day. They could have lost Jovita could have easily lost a basketball match, which I know she's so fond of. And then it can be very depressing. And then, I know that evening she'll be up on the stage to deliver her power-packed performance. So, as a parent, how do you ensure that stability in their emotional quotient? And I think it comes from the family, right? Like you could have had a rough day at work, your husband could have had a rough day at work, but as a family, you guys, get it right. So what does each one bring to the table to maintain that high emotional stability in the family?
Sure. So that's a great observation, Ms. Martin, and I can only expect it coming from you as a parent. I'm sure you've had your own share too. I'll pick up on the keyword emotional stability that you talked about, and I've come up with another analogy, and that's again a combination of all that we're talking about, the tools and the techniques, and that's something that I practice as a person. And my urge to all the parents out there is to also practice it. So when a child is just opening, their mouth, they start making sounds, and these are called vowel sounds. We have all heard it. Yeah. So my analogy to emotional stability is A-E-I-O-U.
Wow.
And when I say A-E-I-O-U, it's a reminder to myself that A and E is what I, as a parent, owe to you, my child. So what is A all about? A is about affection. And we did touch upon that point, unconditional love. Affection, and then I have empathy. I have been in their boat. Let's not forget that, right? I expect them to be perfect. Had I been perfect at that age? No, at 12, I wasn't even on stage. So affection and empathy is what I owe to my children. And that's my message. Affection, empathy, AE is what I owe you. When I integrate my relation, Ms. Martin, on the basis of these vowel sounds, A-E-I-O-U, I think I am driving emotional stability. Because I am then demonstrating to them as a parent that you have me. No matter what, you have me. I have your back. So when she goes on stage, when my son goes for a match, he may not always win. She may not always come out with flying colors. But the only thing that I tell her is that this is only one chance that you have. This chance, this opportunity, this finals will not come back again. This is your chance. Make the most of it. And no matter what the outcome is, I have you and you have me. And I love you. I know children don't express at a certain age, but that doesn't stop us from expressing. I would go on and say, I love you. Sometimes we fight and we say, oh, but I still love you. So again, to sum up to your question, it's all about AEIOU. Affection, empathy is what I owe you, and rejections on emotional stability. I remember Miss Christine, if you recall, many years back in a parent council meeting, I came to you and Jogita Touchwood was winning. She was literally on a winning streak. And you told me at that time, I still remember, that just make sure that she's not burnt out and she's able to handle rejections. I don't know whether you recall. And those were the golden words. So much of wisdom is what I draw in from NMS, your leadership, Ms. Martin. And it so happened that there was one competition that she couldn't make it. It was the semi-finals. She got kicked out. Oh my gosh, she was all of 6 or 7. She came down from the stage and she knew it wasn't good. So her self-awareness was very, very high. And she came running to me. Before the results were announced, she was already in tears, dripping, her mascara, makeup, everything on my blouse. And oh my God, I didn't know I was vulnerable at that time to see my daughter just break down to that extent. All that I did at that time practically, and this is what my urge to all of you, again, apply AEIOU. Affection, empathy is all that you have at that moment for your child. No questioning, no feeling bad. I know in your heart, you're also investing your time, energy, effort. It hurts. You might feel sad because, not just because she didn't make it, but because you're feeling, the sadness in her heart. AEIOU again. Fabulous.
I agree with this, Bhaumik, completely, because as a parent of a single child, we've always made it very clear to our child, no matter what happens, no matter where you are in your life, at what stage, we've got your back. You have us. You have us. And I think it's very important for a child to know this, because there will be a lot of challenges. I'm sure Ms. Christine will agree. Her children are the oldest among all of us. I think they will be willing to go to her at any point in life because of this. I mean, when they have challenges or questions, they should come to us. So that's when children they know that they have someone to fall back upon. That's when resilience sort of kicks in, rather, not builds, kicks in. So it's there at the back of their mind.
You need that assurance.
Yes. I think it's also for parents to stop telling things to children when they don't make it, that, see, that look, mom is disappointed.
Yes.
Yeah. Or, and it becomes so much more about the parent rather than the child's achievement. So it's very important to just be objective. And, well, that's only a process, right? And that is where optimism is it's a bigger aspect that comes into play. So optimism is not just a word, it's not just a state of mind, but it is in these very intangible forms where you tell children how to. You're in a state of failure, but yet how do you be optimistic and look forward and plan forward? I love the AEIOU. Ms. Bhaumik, you're just so full of acronyms. Shireen,
Going the enemy's way.
Shireen, I hope you put that in the chat box for our parents to to capture as well. We have some great chats, feedback that's coming in. So one of the parents says we should also concentrate on individual differences. Absolutely. So because every child need not be a high achiever on the stage. Like Miss Christine always uses this term, and she tells us about her children. She says, my children at the end of the day are good human beings. And I think that is so important, because they could be doing many things and achieving a whole lot of medals and stuff, but if they're not, going to have this, sense of empathy, and outreach, then what's the point? I really love Jovita for this, and touch wood again. She's somebody who's propagated this idea of protect your mom. It started off as an October breast cancer awareness session. And from there on, she's gone on to really garner this movement in the school where she has, she's been such a great inspiration to so many of our girls who have all been able to donate their hair to the Hope Foundation. And it's just something that's like garnering a lot of awareness in the school. So I think it is, when we say accomplished children or children who are high achievers, it is not only the medals that they bring back or the academic grades that they bring back, but how are they making a dent in the universe? How are they contributing their bit, to making the world a better place? And
Sorry, just to add to the individual differences that the parents spoke about, I think one thing we as parents need to be very careful about is not to compare our children with others.
Yes.
And I think as a parent, I did that, and my children throw it back to me quite often. Say, you remember how so-and-so's doing very well? Yeah.
I actually have a slide to show our parents, and I mean, we actually had that in perspective. Comparison just kills creativity. So it's very important to identify, the inner potential of every individual, who's there in our household, and to just, mold them and groom them to become better versions of themselves.
Basically, accept our children the way they are and then groom them.
Yeah, true. And I think as a parent, it's a skill that each of us must possess or harness. One, of course, not to compare, not to have any expectation. And the other part is about, the way I personally feel the way God has created us. As a parent, I always feel both my children are very, very different. They're like literally poles apart. So individual differences is the right thing to celebrate at that time. Yes. Because one might be great in music, the other one possibly just hates music. And you would have tried it as a parent, but it doesn't work. So try to identify the spark, and each of us as human beings have that spark, that moment where we are like, yes, I can contribute to the best of my abilities. I think parenting is also about identifying that spark in the children, and then once that spark is established, try to sort of ignite it, make it like a fire. Yeah. And that's where differences come in, individual differences, and how do we sort of celebrate
and also appreciate for what they are.
Yes.
Appreciation is what we need. That builds up the relationship.
Absolutely.
That validation brings in a greater sense of self-esteem like no other. Yes. So they need not really win everything. They may be actually runners up. They may not even have taken part in it because, well, they love public speaking, but I do not want to necessarily participate in an event where public speaking is judged and there is a medal at the end of the day. So what? But as long as I am able to articulate my thoughts, verbalize my thinking, put my foot down on things which I feel deeply about, that's great. That's fair enough. I mean, life is not always about an event and a competition. So I really love the way this conversation is going. I think we've used 55 minutes of this 1 hour session in such a productive manner. The last 5 minutes I want to spend on two things. And one is, so Ms. Bhaumik, putting all of this together, if you were to just give us one parenting tip, which would encompass all of it, which I know is difficult, but what would
Possibly take about 10 seconds to think about it, because I didn't sort of, thought. I think one parenting tip. So I know it's a digital age, and I know we are all sort of being monitored, observed in a certain way. And I know we as parents also are very keen to observe what our children are doing. Somewhere we possibly would be spying behind their back. Sometimes we want to show that we are so cool. I think it's tough. Parenting is not easy. I've seen a lot of my friends trying to be friends with their children. And I don't think that is so cool. So one parenting tip that I would share is, you are a parent. Your child has a lot of friends. So you don't have to be a friend. Remain as a parent. And while you possibly are trying to remain as a parent and you're observing your own parent to see, okay, so how did my parent behave? Because I am supposed to be a parent. Don't be so old school as well. So my advice would be, stay a parent, but strike the balance. So when it comes to parenting, it's all about, again, AEIOU, demonstrate the affection and empathy first, because that's what you really owe the individual. So it's all about being a parent, establish the intention, the impact of your intention. So when I say impact of your intention, what I really mean is, you want to be a parent, you don't want to be a friend. You have set certain guidelines, maybe certain curfew, 10 p.m. Before that you have to be home. But try to step back and evaluate or assess the impact of your intention. Is it always going to be 10 p.m. that you got to, expect your child to be back? Maybe it's a prom night. Maybe, for that day, it qualifies for another 2 extra hours. It's all right. So intention versus impact is going to be my insight to the parent, and my tip to be, stay as a parent. You don't have to really fit in amongst the friends.
I have a question here from a parent who says, how do we encourage our kids to participate in competitions if they are bogged down with fear of failure? And what incentives can we provide for such kids? I would actually think one is, just acceptance, teaching them that, failure is an event. It is not them who is a failure. They are not a failure because they have failed in something, but failure is an event. And, events keep changing. They could use that failure as a stepping stone. One example that I have is from my daughter's life. She's very passionate about contributing to her school, and she's always been at the helm of doing her best, managing events, and then offering her services in many ways. And she's always been handled leadership roles. So when in her last year, so the year before she graduated, when she was in year 12, she was, she won. Actually, they have a democratic process of student roles, and she won the head of secondary school, so which was the second, level to the head girl position. So when she went to year 13, she probably felt that she was the most apt candidate to become the head of or the head pupil or the head girl, so to say. And it didn't happen, But what happened though was, the way she was told that she is not getting that role this time, that she's not getting that badge, and the kind of endorsement that she had from her teachers that, well, look, you don't really need a badge. There's somebody else who will have a badge, but you've had a leadership role all the while, and now we feel that you don't have to to restrict yourself to a badge and so on. And I think the way she, my daughter put it into perspective, because she had never faced that kind of rejection until then. This is the first time that something banged on, whom, and I myself was worried how she would handle it. She handled it perfectly well. I think that was the biggest lesson in handling rejection or handling failure. She's done pretty well for herself, and believe me, I'm so glad that lesson came her way, because now she's in university. I have no fear of how she's going to face failure. I know she can handle that. But an event like that had to happen. You know, come at the hour, come at the man, they say, and then this was one of them. So last but not the least, to all the parents, we have our webinar word of this episode, and the word for you is optimism. Optimists see failure as changeable, whereas pessimists take blame for failure. So if we want our kids to be optimists, then we need to be able to get them to see failure as an event, as something that is changeable. But my panelists over here, my co-panelists here, have a thought for you in that direction as well. So, Ms. Shalini, over to you for optimism activity.
Mine would be, tomorrow's another day. Tomorrow is another day.
Optimism. The pessimist gets up in the morning and says, good God, morning. The optimist gets up and says, good morning, God. It's all about perspective.
For me, it will be like, you know, challenges and basically failures are temporary. So be optimistic, be a solution seeker. And as I have already said in my, 5 attributes, that optimist people are always finding that silver lining, and they don't dwell on the dark clouds. They try to find a solution for their problems. So that's what.
So with the FYI word of the month, parents, we're going to sign off for today. I hope it was a wonderful session. We plan to do this at least once a month on diverse set of topics, which I think all of us it'll help all of us to reflect on. We're trying to get experts in the, in people who we know, who can really be our greatest exponents for such topics. So stay tuned. And if you do have any more suggestions in this regard, anything that you feel will benefit the NMS parent community, then do feel free to write to us. You can write to me personally or write to Ms. Sweta, Ms. Shalini, or Vice Principal. You know all our email IDs. We'll be more than happy to take that on board into the upcoming sessions. For today, I want to thank my co-panelists and especially you, Ms. Bhaumik. What a wonderful,
Farfar and AEIOU.
Yes, yeah. And we got 2 books as well that has been recommended. One from Ms. Shalini and one from Ms. Christine. Ms. Shireen, you want to put in the names of those 2 books on the chat so that parents can, if you can grab hold of these books, then do read them. As a young parent, I used to read a lot of books on parenting. One of the books was on being a tiger mom, which I never got to be, but that, it's so alluded when we called our millennials as NMS tigers. But the Tiger Mom was one book that, that it just stuck with me. There's so many great books out there. So I wish you all the very best, and to all of us as we raise our children to be thrivers. Thank you again, and have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend. I think you can mute us, Shireen.